We're now a few days after the big Tesla We robot event, and the big institutional investors are mostly confused and still not understanding what they saw. Today, let's speak with a portfolio manager to see how he viewed the event and have him explain the different viewpoints. We got Simon Hale here. He's a senior wealth advisor for Wellington Altus Private Wealth. They manage $30 billion under management, and they do investments for wealthy families in North America and abroad. How did you see the event, Simon?
I was down in New York actually this week when this event happened. And it's odd that every time that there's a big event for Tesla, I happen to be somewhere outside of my home and busy with business. But so this one happened. I was down in New York. I was actually meeting with Goldman Sachs and Blackstone for a couple of days. And I ran off at 9:30, 10 o'clock to catch this event. And I watched the event and I was on your pod. And I was disappointed, not because of the event. I wasn't disappointed at what they showed. The product release was spectacular. It was that I had a feeling that Wall Street wouldn't have the same view that I did, and that the stock would be down the next day. I thought it would be down a lot more. And down 8%. I said, okay, I'll take that. So, we manage money for many clients, and clients look at their portfolios every month and they get excited or upset month to month based on the performance. Now, Tesla is one of the holdings and it's our largest holding currently. So obviously that can have an effect. Why did I think that Wall Street wouldn't be favorable of the event? Well, first of all, I think the expectations were extremely high, and I actually went back afterwards and did some research to understand, when has Wall Street ever been satisfied with the results after a Tesla event? And I looked at the Model X launch, stock was down 5% afterwards. Model 3 launch, it only went up 3%. Amazingly, the Model Y launch, the stock went down 5%. And today, it's the number one selling car in the world. The Cybertruck launch, I was floored by what they had introduced. I've never owned a pickup truck in my life, nor do I need one. But I ordered one that day because I could not believe the engineering behind it. The stock was down 6%. And then, of course, the CyberCap event, the stock was down 8% afterwards. So why is that happening? And so it was interesting that I got to be on Wall Street in the Goldman Sachs building, in the BlackRock building. These are the biggest asset managers in the world. And you can't believe the amount of security in these buildings. And they're telling us, because they want us to sell some of their funds or ETFs. And they're great partners, by the way. I have nothing bad to say about Goldman and BlackRock. Best in the business. They're phenomenal at what they do. And let me actually help some of the retail investors understand how the stock is being traded on these events, whether it be this event or whether it be earnings, and you're watching it in the aftermarket, trying to understand why it's going down. And so both Goldman and BlackRock commented how their AI capabilities are second to none in the industry. Now, to put in comparison, BlackRock probably manages, or they do, $14 trillion in assets globally. And I think they're the largest shareholder of the majority of publicly traded companies on the planet, just through their ETF business. And so they're running algorithms that are, and most people watching your pod, Herbert, will understand that, will understand AI and to a whole new level. So I'm not explaining this to, a client. I'm saying, you guys understand AI, and they're using AI and spending billions of dollars. And what I thought was interesting was they're looking at keywords that they're looking for, and they're comparing those keywords on the earnings. And this is what BlackRock says. The first half of the earnings call, we do not care. It's all scripted. We think we can add value in the second half of the earnings, where it's unscripted and analyst questions come out and they're unscripted. So then they're running this on all the companies that they follow, which is all of them, and they're looking at how many positive comments come versus last call and the preceding call and the other call. And they're looking for keywords. But what even impressed me more was they're also looking and they're using AI recognition of language to interpret what's the mood of the CEO or the CFO. Is he positive or negative? And they will trade in with their algos according to what's being said and the sentiment. And that's why you hear many analysts say, what's the sentiment? The sentiment was negative. The sentiment was positive. And so that's what's happening. So let me bring it forward to the Tesla event and why all Tesla events, the stock trades sporadically, usually down, but sometimes up. What Tesla is doing, if you're going to create new markets and you're going to create an entirely new product and you're going to disrupt the old guard of 100 years, you can't do it doing it the same way that everyone else does. You have to do it completely different. And I don't think anybody's going to understand that. You can't go and run the same race that everyone else is doing. You have to do something completely different. And most people know that the disruption happens when you get two different industries that are leaders that come in and commingle technologies that all of a sudden disrupt an industry. And that's what Tesla's been doing with their EVs, and now their autonomous vehicles, and now their robots. And so what people saw on 1010 was not, I questioned some people on X recently, and I said, when have we ever seen anything that is even close to what we saw on 1010? Now, you were there, Herbert. I'm sure the energy was amazing. I wish I was there. And everybody at that event saw what it was and was extremely excited. But the rest of us at home were watching Elon on stage. He was a little tired. He wasn't scripted. But I mean, he's not trying to sell somebody. If you're trying to sell something fake, you script it, you fake it, you doctor it, and you master it, and you put it together. And this is what we're doing. We'll give you a glimpse. It's going to be awesome. And, thank you for being a shareholder. And they've done this with every single product they've come out with. And I can't think of a product that they haven't delivered on eventually. They're usually a bit late, but they're doing something that nobody else is doing. So I'm glad, actually, Herbert, you reached out to me a couple of days after the event, because I really had time to ponder on this and look and say, why is it? And I realized you can't disrupt these industries, which are some of the largest industries in the world. You can't do it the old-fashioned way. You have to break down the entire model and do it completely different. And when analysts are running, so Wall Street's running their spreadsheets and they're looking at, what are the earnings forecasts? They can't model it. And he's not spoon feeding them for their spreadsheets as to here's how it's going to run. Even when he does and he's wrong, everybody critiques him, right? Even when I say I say Elon came out and says, hey, we're going to deliver this by this date, and then it's late, and everybody says, I told you, he lied. So now he's saying, look, I'm not going to tell you a date. We're working on this. It's going to happen. It may be next year. It may be the year after. But when it does arrive, it's going to revolutionize transportation. And I don't have any reason to doubt that, because as you've seen this weekend, it was a phenomenal weekend. He's landing spaceships back on Earth. And, he's doing the impossible with his companies. I mean, it's been a big weekend.
I love it, Simon. Thank you for explaining all that. First of all, appreciate it. This is why we reach out to you, because you are right there listening, talking to, and the explanation about the sentiment and the AI. It's really the short-term movements. For me, it took me the next morning for me to then really become very bullish when you start thinking about this. And it's exactly what you said, right? Everybody was thinking, oh my God, they're going to announce a Tesla network ride-hailing network tomorrow. It's going to start the next day. We're all going to be able to download the app and order it, and we're going to know exactly what the price is, and we're going to be able to model it out. That's not what this is. What he launched was a robotaxi, autonomous vehicle. Here's the vehicle. This is real. I sat in it. There's 20 of them. This is like designed. This is gorgeous. This beautiful thing and if you look at it, this isn't just a concept car. It's an actual vehicle that they're going to sell at cost at $30,000. And this is what they're making. And so when they launch the autonomous network, the actual network in 2 states next year, that's when this is going to launch. And then 2026, you'll start seeing these vehicles. And so I like what you said, because it really is very much, it's not about a plan. It's about we're doing it, and the day it happens. And so people do just need to wait for it, but it's happening. And the point that I made, the reason I got very bullish is that this vehicle, Waymo has their robotaxi program happening now. They have 700 cars. When Tesla does it, it's not 700 cars. That first year, they're going to make 50 to 100,000 cars. The next year, they're going to make millions. This is a real production level vehicle. What's your interpretation where a number of institutional analysts were expecting a $25,000 car? I don't know where they got that from. I don't know why that became the conversation, but one after another, except for Dan Ives, said that they expect it to be there. Of course, it didn't happen, and that's why they're negative sentiment.
Well, look, the Osborne Effect. You can't launch a $25,000 vehicle when you've got a $35,000 vehicle on offer, and then say it's going to be available next year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a simple one. I sort of what was I hoping for? I was hoping for and expecting them to go more into the actual application of how to use it. Here's, we're going to start offering this now. That would be my thought was they were going to show the vehicle supervised. So my thought process on what they're offering, $25,000 vehicle, it'll probably come next year. They obviously can't talk about it right now. The FSD is progressing. I heard a number of people commenting that FSD is not progressing, or they didn't give a roadmap. I'm driving it every day. So are you, Herbert.
Yeah.
Do you have a doubt that that's not going to be accomplished is it going to be in 6 months? Is it 12 months? Is it 18 months? It's getting there really quickly. And I wouldn't want to drive any car today that does not have that FSD. I took my wife's Rivian out yesterday, and we drove out to the country with 2 kids. My wife didn't want to go, and we went off-roading. But other than that, I don't want to take that car anywhere else. I mean, so I picked up my brother-in-law today, and we just drove from St. Jerome to St. Hippolyte. And we're just chatting, watching podcasts in the vehicle while it's driving. It gives me my time back. And I don't think that people fully recognize that. I don't think they do at all. That is I think it's a market of its own. And if you look at all the great businesses today that were not understood early on, they created a market because it didn't exist. So if you think of the iPhone, even if you think of Amazon Web Services, it didn't exist. But they didn't talk about it. They just went out and did it, and it became a multi-trillion-dollar business. And what Tesla is doing is going after completely, or creating completely new markets that don't exist today. So you can't model these things, but we're getting to experience it, which is phenomenal at a retail level. And we see the progress. It's getting there, and it will be there, and it's better than anything else on the street. So I think that when you're going to disrupt or create a new industry in autonomous vehicles, in compute, in robots, I show my girls that my girls know I'm into Tesla, and I show them what's going on with it. My girls are 2, 6 and 8. And last night we said, hey, let's sit down and I'm going to show you guys a really neat video. And I showed them the robotaxi unveil. And unlike the Wall Street analysts, they were floored. They were so excited. And my 6-year-old was looking at the Optimus and she said, Papa, can I have one of those for my birthday?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know what? Someday we're going to have these and it's not that far off. She woke up in the morning and she wanted to watch the event again. She couldn't believe that these robots actually existed. So I think sometimes like kids get it. Adults get bored, but when has anybody, and I've posted this and I've asked people, when has any company ever done an event that's this revolutionary? And why is it being received so poorly? I'll ask you, Herbert, like, can you think of any other company that's done an event like this that is so...
Yeah. So that's exactly, I was going to get right to that as well. It was an event that had 1,500 people in this massive city, the size of, think Disneyland, right? It's like a massive city. And I experienced Robotaxi. I actually, waited in line, got inside of it. I did it twice, each of them about 5 minutes long. And what blew me away was this was not, like cordoned off, geo-fenced. It wasn't like there was actors, but they knew never to cross the street.
Yeah.
Try to simulate. No, they let all 1,500 people walk wherever you want to walk. They had Tesla employees on bikes. They made it look like Tron lighted bikes to make it look cool, but they're riding everywhere. You had people on ATVs, like 8 ATVs crossed our path. We had one car, like just a security guy in a golf cart stop at the stop line, but of course he doesn't stop at where he's supposed to stop. So my car slowed down, and then when he did stop, then it moved forward. We had people crossing. And so this is exactly what you would have done if you had ordered it. So there's no doubt in my mind. By the way, we've confirmed now that it was FSC version 13 and that was fully autonomous. There was no teleoperation. This is the Tesla employees answered the questions that people were wondering because the car was doing amazing things. There was even a button that let me press and say, which we did, stop the ride now. And we got out right then and there. So it wasn't, there was no restrictions. This was exactly what it was. And I experienced it already. So there's zero doubt in my mind. And it was flawless for 1,500 people. Think about it, 1,500 people. Let's say half of them went on a ride, 50 autonomous vehicles going around the city for 3 hours. Nothing happened. And there was like people all over the place. And so, yeah, they can easily do a Waymo City anytime they wanted to do a geofenced area. Then you had the bots. They had 20 bots walking around, literally. They were surrounded by Tesla employees, just so that you don't know, nobody comes in and tips it off and doesn't stop. It was walking, and none of them fell. And I tell you,
even to that point on the bots, I've heard and I've been reading comments. Oh, they were teleoperated. They were, obviously, I think that obviously they were teleoperated or assisted, and there was a voice.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't concern me. What I looked at was, what was the movement? Yes. There was times where I thought it was actually a human in a suit moving.
Yeah.
So it was so real. So it doesn't concern me if somebody's teleoperating. The fact was it was so human-like. And all you need to do eventually is program it properly with enough data. And then
that's how it'll move.
It will get there. The most difficult part is getting it to the movement and the stability. After that, it just comes down to like the fine tuning of the AI and what you want it to do and how you teach it to learn. And we have the ability today with compute, or they're getting there with growing the compute. It was more about the movement and the fact that these can stand up,
they can
walk
grab
around
cups and hand it to me, and I grab the cup of the drink that I wanted. They can, carry bags. They were walking around and they played rock, paper, and scissors. And again, like you say, that it doesn't matter if it was teleoperated because it can do it. The fingers are correct. Everything can be handled. They can open doors, move around at will. It was smooth. But the whole point, what he did was an event where you saw bots walking around in front of you. You had as 50 robo taxis that you could hail and get in and drive. You experienced the future. This was it. No one said that, right? That this is an event instead of just a presentation on a stage.
Yeah.
Unveil the product. Steve Jobs looked at it and he played with it. Imagine if Steve Jobs actually handed out, here's a 50 of them and play with it. And that, of course they do that sometimes, but this is that's like ready to sell. And that's what this was. I got into the cybercab. It was real. The doors open, the doors close. You can press the buttons. So I didn't even think of it. And somebody later pressed the button to open the hatch in the back and it opened up. And I'm like, damn, why didn't I think of doing that? Right. I just didn't think, but it had everything
And
that
what
you needed to do.
so what company is doing even something remotely close to this? None. And we watch them all. Like we're watching all these large hyperscalers come out with their products. I listen to every quarterly earnings call, not just for that company, but to see where they're spending their money. And nothing comes close to this. And it makes me think back, and I'm reflecting on the events of the past that have really impressed me with Tesla that haven't gotten, positive press. And you can think of like when the Model S Plaid came out and they talked to the specifics of that motor and what it can do. I was floored. I was at a mountain biking, trip with my friends, and I'm telling them about this. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "You have no idea what this." When they came with there was AI, or the Optimus reveal. Everybody thought it was just a joke, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to get into robots." And here we are, 2 years later, and this is how far they've come. And then they talked about, I remember watching Elon drive around California the first time they moved it to end-to-end neural net. And again, it was one of these like moments where he said, wow, this is, and I wrote about it in our client monthly letter. I said, this is going to be like the moment that autonomous transportation was initiated. But, people don't realize that. And again, tumbleweeds in the media. And then, of course, we all remember the Cybertruck event and how that went down. So there's Tesla's doing things. They're doing things different than any other company, but that's the only way that you can completely create your own path. And I joke to my wife that like some companies are on a treadmill, some companies are running in the wrong direction, and Tesla's just created their own direction from point A to point B. And every other company is either on a treadmill or running the wrong direction.
I love it.
And so you can't do what they do if you continue to do what everybody else is doing. If you understand what I mean.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I think the audience, obviously, the way you said at the beginning was correct. I don't believe that Tesla is trying to, their audience is not the investors. Their audience is, I'm creating a product. I'm going to show you, I'm proud to show you a product that's going to revolutionize the world. Here's the future, of positive future of what it could look like. And then I think their audience is customers. I haven't verified this, but Bradford Ferguson said that there was 150 executives of manufacturing firms that were there. I know that the Stellantis president was there, but I haven't verified if that's correct. But certainly everybody who's anybody was there. The entire board member of Tesla, a lot of VIPs, the billionaires, the key people. So you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure that they're here to try to impress investors. They're here to impress customers. And they wanted to see the bots up close. They wanted to see the cars up close to help them, with FSD or the bot. So I think that was the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Overall, I think it was a successful event from our perspective, but it just has taken a couple of days to sort of sink in. They didn't give what Wall Street needed or was wanting. But overall, if you look back on this in 10 years, you'd say, would you have done it any differently? And I think the answer is no. They showed us exactly what they're going to do, and now they're going to execute.
There's a possibility, and I was going to ask you this, that on, was it October 23rd, 10 days from now, they're going to have the earnings event. So this was an event that was normally when they do events like this, it's short, 10, 20, 30 minutes long. And that's what this was as well. Very short event. They show you something. They rarely tell you the details of what it is. But when you get to the earnings call, that's where you might hear and be written down for you. Do you expect anything there, a little bit more specific information than what they've said now?
I agree with you there. I mean, I think this is a product launch. It's not to talk about the numbers.
Mhm.
I would like them to talk about more specifics. And I suspect, I mean, I'm hopeful that they'll get into some of those specifics, especially always remember, listen to the second half of the earnings call, unscripted. You'll get more from that. And I usually go back and listen a few times, and you usually pick up a few things. So yeah, I'm hopeful, but that's where you speak about it. You don't talk about the economics of these during events. They never have. And yeah, we've got, so the catalysts we have ahead of us are going to be the earnings call coming up in about a week or so. We've got election results coming up. I mean, we've heard Elon on an interview recently. He said, yeah, I'm all in on Trump. So whether you're a Trump supporter or not, if Trump wins, it's probably going to be good for the Musk economy. We have rates coming down. We have the deductibility, if Trump wins, deductibility of interest on car loans next year. So there's a lot of bright spots. I would like to see more specifics, just because I'm curious, and we'd like to be able to model it, a little more accurately. If they could talk about, when these are going to be launched, which cities, what their expectations are. But I mean, they said a lot of these things already. They said, 2025, we're going to start issuing robotaxi unsupervised on all vehicles, Tesla already on the road in California and Texas. So that's probably going to be the sort of wake up moment, because I think the biggest criticism that Tesla receives today, and I hear it over and over again, and I'm getting a little bit, I wouldn't say sick of it, just like, oh my God, that's the biggest excuse you have, is that Waymo's on the road doing these sort of drives around a city that's fenced. So if Tesla starts operating these in Texas and California next year, that's going to be huge. And I think they will do it. But you can think of the amount of cars there, and all of a sudden the market's going to wake up and say, oh, they've solved it. It's unsupervised. Because the market seems to be a little bit too short-sighted in terms of its thinking. They're looking at Waymo and saying, wow, they're scaling so quickly, and they've gone from 1,000 to 2,000 vehicles, and they're doing a couple thousand miles of these drives, but they don't say what the cost of those drives are. They don't say whether the interventions are remote or if somebody actually has to come and get the car out of trouble. And so we really don't know the specifics, but everybody's so impressed. I was in the locker room at the gym last week, and somebody that works for another firm and is an analyst for technology industry said, I was so impressed. I went out to California and I was in a Waymo vehicle, and they really solved this. I said, oh, did you know that there's actually somebody monitoring it remotely? And he's like, I didn't know that. I said, well, yeah, actually, that it drives most of the time, but whenever it gets into trouble, there's somebody there to support it. So if Tesla is able to prove this next year, which I think they will, I think that's going to change the narrative on the full self-driving discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Simon. Appreciate your time. Check them out at Wellington Altus. You can go to their website, wellington-altus.ca. And then if you're on X, follow him at Simon Hale 007. I'll put that info in the description. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate you all the time giving us your feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Herbert. Good to see you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.